Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started in just a moment. I appreciate you joining us here today for our Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce and Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce webinar today with Governor Ned Lamont, also joined by Commissioner David Lehman. So we'll give everyone just another minute to log on and then we'll get started. Again, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this special webinar today. This is the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce and Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce webinar series. My name is Garrett Sheehan. I'm the president and CEO of both chambers. We're extremely pleased today to be joined by Governor Ned Lamont. I'm going to first introduce Jim Perito, our Government Affairs Committee Chairman, and also partner with Halloran and Sage. Jim, would you like to introduce the governor for us today?
Thank you, Garrett. This is a pleasure to have the governor here and Commissioner Lehman with us today. Government Affairs of the Chamber always tries to keep our elected officials in touch with our members and our partners, and we look forward to your guidance today and answering some of the questions. So with that, Governor Lamont, welcome to our webinar.
Hey, Jim, thank you. And Garrett, thank you for getting this organized. David and I are doing everything we can to make sure that the real information gets out to people. It's a situation that's changing by the hour, and we know how it impacts small business. I can just give you a little bit of the good news before I tell you some of the not so good news. I mean, the good news is that I just got off the phone with a lot of our fellow governors. They're going to the short-term borrowing window. The feds are opening up. Treasury Mnuchin's there. They're running out of cash. We're in a very different position right now. Our cash position is strong. And by the way, we have a rainy day fund of $2.7 billion. So that gives us a little bit more flexibility than some of our other states have had. That meant that we were able to, defer payment on, corporate income tax and sales tax, at least to mitigate the pain for a period of time and allow people to plan accordingly. We also have a little more capacity in our hospitals, and our hospitals are working together really well. They're working together as one, rather than 8 different hospital systems and 26 different hospitals all competing back and forth. We're pretty well organized, and that's really important because when it comes to vents, when it comes to masks, when it comes to PPE, we're not getting as much from the feds as we need. So we're able to husband our resources. We're able to make sure that we have in real time what they have in Hartford, what they have in Fairfield County, what they have in Eastern Connecticut, so we can mix and match ventilators and such as needed. And that's buying us some time, and that's buying us some capacity. And right now, compared to New York City and Louisiana, that extra capacity is a godsend for us. I would say, broadly speaking, there's some glimmers of hope that perhaps the rate of increase, certainly in Louisiana, certainly in parts of New York City, obviously in Seattle, Washington State, is slowing just a little bit. So maybe some of these places think they're getting closer towards the peak. We're probably a week or so behind there. So we're watching this very carefully, hoping that we may have enough capacity to power through as we move people and equipment back and forth. Obviously the tough thing for Connecticut is when New York City sneezes, we catch cold. And so Fairfield County was hit hard and hit early. It was a little over just a month ago that Danbury Hospital reported the first COVID infection. And I think you see the numbers now moving up. New Haven County is obviously, Garrett, are probably our fastest growing area of infections and hospitalizations. That said, Yale New Haven Hospital still has good capacity. We've added on the field hospital there over at Southern Connecticut. So I feel like we're in better position. In terms of small business, Mnuchin, our Secretary of Treasury, was just on saying things are going pretty well with the SBA guaranteed, bridge loans that are coming on. Haven't heard many people saying we're doing well on that front. The website was overwhelmed. They put out about $40 billion so far, he said, and they're processing another $60 billion today in terms of those forgivable loans. We put out a message at the end of last week saying, get to the front of the line if you can, work with your local bank, figure out your operating expenses. That's payroll, that's benefits, that's rent, and you can get to the front of the line at least to get that relief from the federal grant program as it comes forward. David will tell you a little bit about the bridge that the Connecticut is trying to put together, a bridge to that federal loan, some short-term financing we're trying to make available sooner, just to help folks, as we bridge to where we are got to be on the federal loan program going forward. And finally, probably one place where we all have a lot of work to do, and this is true of the federal as well as virtually all of our fellow states, is the unemployment claims. I come out of technology business a little bit, so I saw this 40-year-old COBOL system. We hopped on this as we looked around the state year and a half ago, and made DOL processing of the unemployment one of the priorities. The money is in place, the design is in place, but the system is not in place. So we do have a 6-week backlog, as 250,000 claims came in the course of 2.5 weeks. That's 250,000 claims in 2.5 weeks. Compare that to 180,000 claims all of last year, or maybe it was even during the last recession, David, is what we tried to be planning for. And obviously this is in 2.5 weeks what you're likely to see during a year. I will tell you that Kurt Westby and the team, we found COBOL engineers from around the state, and Synchrony and Gartner are helping us as well, trying to find a workaround there. So I'm hopeful to have some good news for some of your folks when it comes to when it comes to the unemployment claims, within the week. So fingers crossed on that front. Let me leave it there and maybe take questions, or David could fill in.
Yeah, Governor, thank you for your leadership throughout this crisis. I'll turn it over to Commissioner Lehman to make a few comments, and then anyone who wants to ask a question, you can put that in the chat box or Q&A, and we'll start going through those with the Governor. David?
Yeah, thank you, Garrett. Thank you, Governor and Jim, for having me on here. Just want to make a couple comments, and I think really timely is the PPP loan program, right? It started on Friday. It was a bit of a rocky start. The intel we're getting is many of the big banks were taking loans, but we're aware of issues around that, and certain big banks were not taking loans until either over the weekend or today. The governor mentioned some of the numbers. At the state level, we believe 1,300 loans were made, or requested rather, I should say, totaling $650 million of that $40 billion. So I think Connecticut companies and Connecticut banks, relatively speaking, were fairly well prepared. But this is a program where there's going to be significant needs. So there's roughly 90,000 small businesses in the state. If 1,300 only got their application in on Friday, we hope a lot more get their applications in this week. So the Secretary Mnuchin over the weekend, I understand, had a phone call with bank CEOs in addition to governors like Governor Lamont. Our hope is that there's going to be more money behind the $350 billion. We obviously can't count on that. So I think it's important that our businesses continue to get their loan requests in, working with their bankers. And our understanding is this money could be dispersed in waves, but potentially at the end of this week going into next week. So that would be very positive if that was the case. But there's an incredible amount of focus on the PPP program, and we really want to make sure all of our businesses are focused on those loans, and the state and DCD are absolutely ready to help them. SBDC, the SBA has other resources, so we can take all kind of questions there, but we really want to help and make sure that folks are accessing those loans. The governor did mention the Connecticut Recovery Bridge program that we also announced roughly a week and a half ago. We are processing those loans right now. We actually are likely going to be working with a partner, an online lending partner, to make sure that we can disperse those payments very, very in a timely manner. Our goal is to do that no later than the end of this month. We understand the importance of that cash quickly, and our typical manual process for the amount of loans that we're going to do is just not going to work. So we're going to speed that up as well to make sure that money gets on the street very, very soon. So I'll stop there. I think we can go through some of the other programs that the governor has rolled out in terms of forbearance, moratoriums on grace periods on mortgages, foreclosures, moratoriums, insurance grace periods, really anything beyond some of the sales tax and other income tax help. But I'll stop there, and we're happy to go into questions.
Great. Governor, first, a couple questions about the health crisis itself. We obviously cover New Haven, and as you mentioned, New Haven seeing an uptick in the number of cases. What do you think we should expect in New Haven and the surrounding communities?
I think you should expect that the rate of infection and, more importantly, the rate of hospitalization is going to go up. Maybe not exponentially. Maybe it's linear. Maybe our social distancing is making a difference. I'm not going to jump to conclusions there, but that's, I think, point number one. I think you've got pretty good capacity. We've got 3,000 volunteers or folks who come in off the sidelines, retired nurses, doctors, and the such. So we've got the manpower, the people power that help fill in the blanks there. And I think you've still got maybe, you've got you still have capacity in terms of beds. PPE, we're mixing and matching because, as I've said before, I feel like a general sending troops off to war. I'm not giving them the protection that they deserve. But I think in the greater New Haven area and the such, the hospitals have been husbanding their resources, so we're in good shape for the near term.
Governor, as far as the social distancing, I think we're entering our 4th week here in Connecticut of people staying home. Do you see, and the reports you're getting, are businesses following those rules generally? Are you satisfied with what you're hearing back from the field?
You know, I am pretty satisfied. Every once in a while, there's some neighborly policing. They send us the video. They say, why don't you go to this Walmart? I think you may find something going on here. And our police have gone out there. We're not, we're giving people a friendly reminder. First time's a friendly reminder. Third time, maybe a little stricter. But more to the point, I'd say 95% of our companies are taking this seriously. As you know, we tightened up the guidance in an executive order last week. We said no more than half the number allowed by the fire marshal. I think people are following that. We said stay 6 feet apart from each other in the cashier's lines. I'm doing everything I can to keep the economy going, at the same time making sure our social distancing isn't compromised, because it does make an enormous difference in terms of hospital capacity and flow and lives.
And I can speak for our business. Oh, go ahead, David.
Sorry, if I may just on that front. So the governor mentioned we put out the safe stores guidelines for essential retailers last week. And I think the compliance that we've seen and folks following suit with respect to that has been great. And one thing we are working on right now is safe essential workplace rules. So that would be for logistics, office, manufacturers, a consistent set of rules and guidelines basically for folks to follow beyond just retailers. So that's something that folks could expect from us this week.
Great. We appreciate that, because I've heard from a lot of businesses that are thankful of the approach you've taken, both you and the commissioner, of trying to keep economic activity going while still being healthy. And to David, your point, we have had a lot of questions, especially from manufacturers. You know, how should we do temperature tests? What should we do if we have a COVID case come up? You said that guidance is coming. Do you foresee any other adjustments? I think every once in a while I hear there's rumors out there, there's something more drastic or severe coming down, but if you could just kind of put a lay to those fears that are out there.
Sure. Governor, you want me to handle this, or you want to handle it? So listen, I think there's a rumor every day, Garrett, as many know. And I think the governor pointed out a week is like a lifetime at the current rate. So, you know, in terms of what's imminent, what I just mentioned is what we're working on. Consistent rules for essential workplaces, best practices, if you will, in terms of how to keep your employees safe. And if there is illness, what to do to make sure folks are staying home, you know, at the slightest hint of illness or not feeling well. We found with the safe retail guidelines that came out last week, there was little pockets of compliance here and there, but everyone had their own ideas. Giving a consistent playbook to everyone, we think that's the main thing we can do. And a lot of this is making sure folks understand what the state is doing and what the CDC and the Department of Public Health at the state are encouraging, and just following it, simply put.
Hey, Garrett, I'd only add that I'm on the phone with Defense Secretary Esper in a couple of hours. And given the importance of the defense manufacturing here in the state, it's considered a critical infrastructure. By law, it has to stay open. And yet we've had a half dozen infections on the plant floor at, say, Electric Boat. And so what we're trying to impress upon the secretary is, look, it's important we keep these open. I need the masks. I need the testing capability. I need the Abbott Lab 15-minute tests. We want to do everything we can to keep these facilities going, but they can be as much of an incubator as a nursing home can. So you got to work with us on this.
What have you seen from industry? I know we've had a lot of businesses in Connecticut that have heard the call. They're making PPE now. Maybe they already make ventilators. Medtronic comes to mind. We have a lot in the life sciences sector who are working on vaccines. What have you seen, Governor and Commissioner, as a response from Connecticut's industry?
Gearing up, which is invaluable. We can't do this overnight when it comes to ventilators, but you mentioned Medtronics. Yeah, we're trying to do everything we can. Colin Cooper and I were there, 10 days ago, saying, what do you need in terms of people power? What do you need in terms of financing? How about a partner who has some manufacturing capability? How can we help you source the parts you need so you can go from 50 ventilators a week to 500 ventilators a week? Maybe David has an update on that, but that's the type of entrepreneurship and innovation we need. We've got upholstery folks who make treatments for windows, whatever that is, and now they're making masks for us. We're trying to aggregate that to cloth masks as they become more and more of a requirement.
Yeah, that's great, Governor. I mean, so on Colin Cooper, when Colin joined as the chief manufacturing officer, this kind of bizarre role, we certainly didn't envision what he's doing right now as part of it, but he has been invaluable, really working with Connecticut industry, working with CMC, CVIA, vetting a lot of the incomings we get. I see there's some in the chat right now, but Colin and the procurement team are certainly working on that, both with providers, but also folks that can retool. And a good example is just less than an hour ago, Xerox, a Connecticut company, put out a press release that they are going to be accelerating making ventilators. They're partnering with folks to do that over the next 2 months. So there's a lot of ingenuity happening. A lot of people are answering the call, and we're deeply appreciative.
And I saw in the chat some people asking, someone said they're making hand sanitizer that they could give to the state. So I guess, David, best contact, they can obviously go to the chamber. We can connect them with you, but anyone who wants to do more or has a product?
Yeah, I would send it to me, and I'll get it to the right team at the EOC. There's an email we have, but they could send it to me, and I'll make sure the right procurement team is looped in and get you guys an answer if it's something we can pursue or if we don't have a need there.
Hey, Garrett, maybe a generation ago, our guys in the correctional facilities were making license plates. Now they're making hand sanitizer.
Wow. Wow. I know we're still right in the middle of the crisis, but Governor and David, have you given any thought to what those next steps look like once we start to get things under control? And I ask that question because as many of these businesses are filling out loans, they're making their decisions on how much to take out and if they need a loan based on what does it look like in 2 months, 3 months down the road. Can they still operate their business the way that they did before the crisis hit? So I guess any kind of, I know there's no clear answers, but any guidance that you give to our businesses?
Yeah, I can start on that. I'm thinking a lot. We are thinking a lot. I was hoping, used to like to say I'm thinking about the day after, but I think it may be, I'm afraid, the year after. You know, we've had a lot of briefings in the White House. We're on with California yesterday as they think about the idea of these rolling hot zones that may continue for you know, not just weeks, but many months after this thing peaks soon. You know, that said, two things. A, when it comes to education, what we're doing, we've got we're delivering all the textbooks, we're delivering Scholastic, the online learning. Garrett Moran is working on making sure workforce development keeps going so we can train people for folks, get them back to work. What was good about the loan program created by the federal government is that hopefully it keeps small businesses intact so that on the backside of this thing, whatever that means, they can power forward and keep going. And we're just beginning to think now about broader testing and antibody testing. And what that means is at least we'll be able to find perhaps those younger folks who we can broadly do antibody testing, see who's built up an immunity to COVID. Those are the people we'd best be able to get back to work. And you think that you'd be able to say, well, obviously everybody that had COVID, they'll probably be immune, but we're probably missing 2/3 of the people that have it, didn't know what it was, don't know they've got the immunity. So we're going to roll out that testing, I think, over the next 60 days, so we can figure out who can get back to work first.
David, more detailed question for you about the shared work program. I know this is Department of Labor, so not your area, but questions about if there's a backlog with labor right now, how people can get approved for the shared work program so they can avoid doing full layoffs and instead do some kind of partial layoffs.
Yeah, so as the governor mentioned, the Department of Labor, there is a backlog. They are working on a couple technical fixes this week to hopefully alleviate that backlog, and that 5 weeks or so the governor alluded to really try to shorten that, but that's still a work in progress given the old COBOL system. Shared work, though, to be direct, my understanding is that's a more manual process that is more challenging to automate. So the same number of backlog in shared work takes more time than the typical UI benefits. So I would just encourage folks that want to engage in shared work to try to reach out to the Department of Labor and see how quickly that could be processed. But there's a constraint there now that's real, and I think we're trying to speed it up, but it's proven a bit challenging given the old system. So I'm happy to take that offline with Commissioner Westby, but that's where shared work stands right now.
Thank you. Reading the executive orders from you, Governor, each week is a fascinating lesson in government to see all the different ways that this has impacted, all the different rules that you're suspending. We've had a lot of questions on the chat and the Q&A about penalties around unemployment, taxes, tax dates with municipalities. Is it fair to say that you guys are continuing to evaluate everything that comes up and is impacted by the virus?
Yeah, I'll start and then hand that over to David, but absolutely. We're trying to err on the side of leniency there, give people time. Frankly, what Kurt Westby's doing with the Federal Department of Labor is allow us a way to and get those checks out faster without the fear of an audit coming back and say you're doing things a different way. Our last executive order, Garrett, relaxed the medical malpractice. Just to make sure that our hospitals, our doctors know they're working under extreme circumstances, and I don't have to have them worried every day about a potential lawsuit. So we're doing everything we can to give people the freedom to operate going forward.
Yeah, I would just say I think we're contemplating everything, and you've seen the pace at which the governor has been issuing executive orders that are hopefully easing the burden on residents and small businesses while starting to be mindful of what is this exit plan? How are we going to reemerge and get the economy restarted in a smart and responsible way? So, I'm very hopeful that sooner rather than later, we can really start to take up what a recovery package and a stimulus package looks like at the state level to really get this economy going again. But making sure that we are payrolls and our workplaces are as ready as possible for that's going to be important. So that's why these PPP loans where you can maintain workforce, and Gary, there's a number of questions we might want to go through in the chat now on PPP. I think that's really important because what that is enabling you to do is to maintain payroll, maintain your workforce, so when we can reemerge, and I think we all know there's not going to be a grand reopening, this is not going to be possible, but when the economy starts to reemerge, however that is, that we have folks that are ready and able to do that, to work.
Yeah, David, you're right. Lots of questions about Paycheck Protection Program. If you want to, I know you're deep into the details. We're also going to do another webinar for everyone tomorrow morning on PPP. I think the biggest question I'm seeing, and it deals with people getting through with their banks. I've heard some banks have hit their asset allocation limit, and they're examining how they can offer more loans. Some people struggling to get through. I've seen some about nonprofits having trouble getting through. If you want to just comment on some of those.
Yeah, so I'm just going to I'm going to do rapid fire here. So there was one bank, Marna put this, that was not engaging on Friday because there was not a business relationship or already a credit extension. I believe if it's the bank that we're thinking about, that is stopped, and that bank is now working with all customers and all potential customers. I think there was early Friday morning and throughout the day Friday, there was just a rush to a lot of these institutions, but we believe that all banks, whether you're a nonprofit or a small business, they should be working with you now. If they're not, you can reach out to me or the Department of Banking. It is one thing I would make sure people are aware of: when sole proprietors can access PPP, that is April 10th, this Friday, as opposed to April 3rd. So I think for those that are single person businesses, they're going to need to wait a bit. But the other thing on the not-for-profit side, 501c3s, and Garrett, you're more well-versed in this than I, not all nonprofits are eligible, but 501c3s are eligible for the Paycheck Protection Loan. But other nonprofits, unfortunately, are not, as the federal law was designed.
Right, 6s and 7s are not eligible right now.
There was another question about the PPP in terms of the timing. You do need to maintain your payroll as of February, 8-week period. So there is that's how you get the forgiveness. That's how that loan becomes a grant. So it is really crucial. You know, the flip side of that is the federal government, to what the governor mentioned at the outset, they are willing to pay for your payroll for that 8-week period, in addition to rent or your mortgage interest and utilities. So that is the goal. And there are certain businesses that will need to rehire if they have already let go, to make sure they can comply with that rule.
Jimmy,
David, there was a couple of questions about,
Yep.
There's a couple of questions from the construction side of things, whether more protocols will be coming out and whether the protocols would treat the construction sites differently, whether they're at the beginning of construction or at the end, because the density of the workers changes depending on where you are. Is that going to be rolled out soon?
So construction will be addressed in this essential safe workplaces rules that we're going to put out. We understand, outdoor construction, the spacing that can naturally happen there versus indoor construction. I think our view right now is indoor construction is going to be treated similar to an office, where you have the requisite amount of spacing to keep people safe. Obviously, folks saw the CDC came out on Friday encouraging cloth face masks, not surgical ones, but cloth face masks. So we're going to be encouraging much of the same.
Okay.
David, there also was a question about, let's say, manufacturers, other businesses that are open. They understand the need for PPE to first go to hospitals, first responders. Where should they turn if they feel like, let's say they have someone who's doing temperature testing of everyone that comes in the door to get some PPE for their critical employees that are in close interaction?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to what specifically. I mean, we haven't heard of a lot of employers that are actually doing temperature testing themselves, because they're either having their employees do it before they get to work, or they can't get a thermometer and they don't have someone standing outside the factory or the office. But if there's a need for a specific personal protective equipment, like a surgical mask, the way they're gonna need to do it is in conjunction with, or similar to how the state's looking at it, we're looking to the typical suppliers and really trying to purchase them and get in line. It's a bit of a free-for-all of sorts out there, given the demand that states have on that front. So sorry, I don't have a better answer for you on that. Right now, we're very focused on getting everything that the medical and health providers need, which is priority number one for sure. And hopefully there is some excess, but that's really where we're focused right now.
Hey, Garrett, this is interesting to me anyway, but we've got our order in for 85,000 smart thermometers, and they start scheduled for arrival today. And they're sort of traditional thermometers, with one exception. They're Bluetooth connected to your iPhone. They go up to the cloud, and they give us real-time information on temperatures on either a randomized basis, or B, subject to your particular institution. So this is the way we're trying to think about this, as well as the traditional heat sensing fever thermometers, just to help patrol people coming in and out of big institutions like Sikorsky.
Yeah, watching those maps has really been fascinating as they put all that data up there. Governor, question about nursing homes. David Hunter with Mary Wade. Just wanted to know in general, what are some of the precautions that the state is taking around nursing homes?
We were one of the first states to, I'm afraid, say no outside visitors, just because of the nature of the contagion there. We're making a big priority to make sure our nursing home folks who are there get the PPE and the protective equipment they need. But probably most importantly, We're going in, we're doing the testing. We've got probably 20% of our nursing homes have somebody who is, at risk or thought is may be infected and tested positive. We're getting those people out to COVID-only wings or out to COVID-only nursing homes. We're getting them set up right now. As you can imagine, we had to pay a premium. We wanted to pay a premium. This is combat duty for the people who are taking care of our loved ones in those quarantine nursing homes. And we're doing that. We're doing that for nursing homes. Frankly, we're doing that over in corrections. We're doing that in homeless. We're doing everything we can to quarantine out those that are at risk to themselves and others.
I did have someone ask a couple times a specific question just about the incarcerated population and the overall plans for dealing with our prisons.
I can tell you we have our people incarcerated is the lowest level in history, 400 people less incarcerated today than 2 months ago. We're not doing any mass release or something, but what we are doing from a total focus on public health, making sure anybody doesn't have to be in there. Maybe it's a minor offense, maybe it's some probation offense. We keep them out so we build more capacity. We're focused on those older folks who are incarcerated. If they have a good place, safe, not in the prison that they can go where they can be taken care of, that's okay. We do have wings. We have negative pressure wings and the such, where we can take care of them very safely. They're less likely to infect the other prisoners in the same facility.
General question here about how the state can start using more technology. This person was asking about the court system grinding to a halt, which obviously stops a lot of important matters, but I think this can be applied to towns as well. Governor, any thoughts of how we can use technology more to kind of get some of those functions back up to speed over time?
Yeah, we can sell the Capitol building and do it over Zoom, just like we're doing right now. I think this is going to really reset a lot of relationships, not just during the crisis, but going forward. I think about how our schools are doing more and more telelearning. We've realized what we can do by telecommuting and what we can't. I think telehealth is going to be transformed. Sadly, it took a crisis to do it in terms of how we take care of people remotely. David and I have been thinking, way before this crisis about the allocation of people, how much space do we actually need for state government? What can be done off-site versus on-site? We found we had maybe 50% more space than we needed compared to the private sector right now. We're going to take another look at that analysis.
We have seen that we do have employers who are fully operational because they have to be, whether it's Amazon, some of our food manufacturers in the medical industry. So there are jobs open. Any ideas as to how we connect so many unemployed with these jobs? I know on our website we've been trying to post those as they come up, but it is a big connection issue.
Why don't you take that, David?
Yeah, I would say so. That's we're starting to focus a lot on that, and I think that we're still a bit in this triage phase of the public health crisis. Clearly, where more data is still coming out every day in terms of how the virus moves, how people can get it, how to be safe from it. So closing down the American Job Centers and some of the human interaction that previously, basically, when someone was looking for a job, they went to a certain place, and that obviously is not going to work right now. So I think where the focus is trying to put as much as possible online and encourage folks like what you guys are, Garrett, to be looking for these jobs that are open online. I think because it's been evolving and changing so quickly, it's been tough to create a real centralized repository of that. But I think you're going to see that come very shortly as one of the key takeaways from this crisis when we leave this triage phase and we start focusing on recovery. Yeah, because the recovery, you're still going to have some of those constraints in terms of human interaction because the state's not going to all open up at once.
Indeed, the largest online job site in the world, and a Connecticut company, is a key member of our Workforce Development Board, Garrett. So I think we should probably think now in terms of how we locate those jobs that are opening and people looking for work.
Any guidance for someone who was already on unemployment and now sees their benefits close to ending? You seen anything on that, David, as far as do they fall into the new benefits that have come from federal government?
I believe there was an extension of 13 weeks beyond the additional 26 in the CARES Act. I'll need to confirm that. But I believe there was a bit more time that was afforded as it relates to unemployment benefits in addition to that true-up.
Governor, I saw a tweet from you yesterday just thanking all of the workers across Connecticut. I think we all see the grocery store clerk to anyone at the stores who's out there really putting themselves out in front of the entire public. If you want to just comment on the entire workforce of Connecticut and what they're doing.
Yeah, at the same time, I'm telling more and more of our workforce stay at home, and they're doing everything we can to make sure they keep getting a paycheck. I'm asking a certain group of people, I need you desperately on the front lines right now. And that could be everything from, nurses and doctors to food service workers. All of them feel at a certain amount at risk right now. So A, we're thanking them, and B, doing everything we can to make it easier for them. A guy named Ray Dalio, created daycare facilities next to each and every one of our hospitals so that those first responders know that their kids are taken care of while we need them taking care of others. And those are the type of benefits we're trying to expand to food service workers and others who are on the front line, cops, firemen. Remember firemen, I mean, they got 99 of them right now in self-quarantine, and they're not just putting out fires, they deliver 75, 80% of our EMT calls. So we need them more than ever. There are a lot of first line responders we're doing a better job of taking care of.
I know I've seen on here and I've heard some questions about college students. Obviously, a very difficult time if you're going to be graduating right now. I think it falls under some of the general workforce issues we've been talking about and how we get things back up to speed. We're going to wrap up here with a couple more questions, but one of our final closing questions. Governor, and I think you've touched on this at times, but how do we come out of this as a stronger state once we recover from this virus?
Oh, I love that question. Look, we had so much momentum, damn it, going into this crisis in terms of building permits and unemployment. It took us a while as a state compared to our peers to catch up, and we were catching up. And I don't want to lose that momentum. And thank God I got David Lehman here right next to me. So I want to do everything I can in terms of workforce training, opening up different segments of the economy, making sure the job skills are aligned with the people we need, making sure that I have a banking community that's beginning or willing to continue to extend credit with some risk out there right now. We as a government are going to be, transformed in different ways as well. But I'll tell you as a state, and I think this is as a nation, that it takes democracies a hell of a long time to get their act together. We spend a lot of time just getting angry with each other until there's a crisis. And the federal government took a while, and they are stepping up. And I got to believe that what we have going on in the states, our business community has been just amazing. Look what the banks did on mortgages. Look what the utilities did on no shutoffs. Look what the health insurance guys did in terms of extending a grace period. I got to tell you, our hospitals are working together. We didn't always have a great relationship with our hospitals. I inherited a mess on that front. And we are working together hand in glove. So I hope we can keep that really positive momentum going as we see the infection rate go down, the hospitalization rate go down, and safely we can start moving people back into the workforce.
Governor, I'll come back to you in a moment for a final word on how people can stay safe and how we get through this. But David, as we close out, still lots of questions about Paycheck Protection Program, other stimulus programs out there. Thank you for being so tireless on all of these. Any last words you want to share with everyone?
No, I would just say, listen, I think the most important thing we can do right now is to over communicate. So we're really, DECD, we're trying to, for those of you that are not on our email list and want to be on it, feel free to reach out to me, or you can put yourself on our website. I think it's really important that at the state level and at the federal level, because every day the governor is putting out executive orders that are easing the burdens on business, on individuals. We're laser-like focused on DC with our federal delegation, understanding the stimulus that's coming. There absolutely will be a fourth wave, and we're talking about that right now. And hopefully there will be more of this paycheck protection funding that's coming. So I think we just need to make sure we're over communicating and that businesses and individuals are aware of everything the state is doing and the federal government's doing, because there's a lot of programs that are out there, and we want to make sure that we're utilizing them and that they're accessible.
David, thanks a lot for joining us. Governor, we really appreciate you taking the time. I know your days are extremely busy. What are the last words you'd like to leave everyone with as how we get through this, how to stay safe out there?
Well, first of all, keep giving us your feedback. Everybody on this Zoom call, give Garrett feedback on our executive orders and everything else we're trying to do. I mean, David and I are running like hell down, and then we got this wave called COVID crashing behind us. We're trying to stay ahead of them. We're not getting everything right, but we're trying to do it right. And we refine things based upon the input you give us. Look, in terms of expanding capacity at our hospitals and other providers, we're doing as good as we can there. And like I said, I think we'll have close to doubled our capacity in the next week or so. Everything else is going to be on this distancing side of this thing. I know it's a total pain. I know we thought it was weird when we looked over in Asia 5 months ago and everybody's walking around with red masks. But everything you can do to convince your friends, convince your neighbors, convince people in employment that this is the month where it makes a difference. 3 days was sort of the difference between Seattle taking it really seriously and, say, Queens taking it really seriously. In 3 days, look at what a difference that made in terms of infections and hospitalizations. We're going to get through it, and we're going to be stronger for it.
Commissioner, Governor, thank you again. Jim, thanks for joining us. I want to thank everyone out there. We'll continue to stay as a resource, both at the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce and Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce. Hope everyone has a great day, and please stay safe. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, David.